have ourselves a jam-packed show, such as Trevor Bauer going to the Los Angeles Dodgers. Who would have thunk? Honestly, not me. It sounded like he was going to the New York Mets, but he is going to be a Dodger. What a pleasant surprise for the boys in blue. Will he be able to help the Dodgers repeat as champs? Also, Matt Stafford is an LA Ram, as the Rams depart 3 picks and Jared Goff to Detroit Lions for Matthew Stafford. Will Stafford be able to help the Rams take the next best step in the NFC playoffs? Also, we have a departure, as Candice Parker, who has been a Spark for about 10 or so years, is going back home to Chicago. Disappointing, but, her home is where the start is. And then round 1 of the three-way face-off between the Kings and the Ducks went to the Anaheim Ducks. How'd the Ducks do it, and what went wrong for the Kings? Also, USC and UCLA will be clashing in men's basketball for a potential first-place showdown in the Pac-12. Will the Trojans come out on top, or will the Bruins continue their dominance? All that and more here on the SoCal Supreme Sports Show. This is Teran Rodriguez with another edition of the SoCal Supreme Sports Show here on IE Sports Radio, your show for all that is sports. And welcome one, welcome all to another edition of the SoCal Supreme Sports Show. Thank you all for tuning in on this beautiful Friday afternoon. I definitely appreciate you. And Larry B's already in the chat room saying game time, which is basically his catchphrase when it comes to certain shows. Unless it's like soccer or volleyball, then he says match time. So there's that. But thank you indeed for tuning in, Larry B. It really means a lot. So we have a lot to talk about, man. It's just a lot going on in terms of Southern California on the pro sports side. I guess the biggest elephant in the room that we need to address is Trevor Bauer going to the Dodgers. Now, I heard from Bob Nightingale that the Mets had reached a deal with Trevor Bauer, and I was like, man, there goes that. And then I also heard on the radio that Trevor Bauer's top 2 destinations were the Dodgers and the Mets in no particular order. And then when I heard that Bauer was going to be a Dodger, I'm like, wait, really? Because normally some of the stuff that John Heyman tweets out isn't necessarily true, except for when the Angels found their new manager. But I was a little surprised that Trevor Bauer chose the Dodgers. But it's really cool, though. It's a really good time for Dodgers fans, and it's really awesome. It really helps their pitching, and that rotation is going to look legit. And all I gotta say is good luck, NL, National League. Almost said NFC. I guess it's good to transition to the next little big news in terms of Southern California sports, and that just so happens to be Matt Stafford becoming an LA Ram. So the Rams sent Jared Goff 2 first-round picks, the 2022, 2023, and a third-round pick, to the Detroit Lions, along with Jared Goff for Matthew Stafford. I think this is a win-win situation because it seems like the Rams aren't overly concerned with first-round picks. Like they're actually quite successful under Sean McVay when it comes to not having first-round picks, and I think it's really going to benefit the Rams, and I don't think they're going to be losing too much sleep over this. And they kind of needed an upgrade from quarterback just because Jared Goff just wasn't cutting it. And I know Matthew Stafford isn't the best quarterback, but he was put in a tough situation being in a division with the Green Bay Packers, which are perennially good for the most part, the Chicago Bears, which have a stingy defense, and the Minnesota Vikings, who have a decent quarterback and a very talented wide receiver and a very, very talented running back and decent tight ends. And then they also have other good wide receivers as well. So I think Matt Stafford is gonna needed a fresh start when it came to his career, and I think he's gonna get it nicely when he comes to LA, and he's gonna get a change of scenery when he plays the 49ers, Cardinals, and the Seahawks twice a year. He has experience playing some of those teams, like the Cardinals, like the Cardinals and Lions face one another. So he'll know the Cardinals firsthand and how they're able to do battle. So gotta give a shout to Pierre Moss, who popped in the chat room. Thank you for tuning in, Pierre, as well as Andrew Hagenbaugh, who just finished his show, the State of Ohio Sports. Hey, and you did a great job as always. And Pierre I'm presuming he's taking a break from doing his live call, because he's doing a live call of George Mason at Dayton, and he was doing a top-notch job when I was checking in. I didn't comment, unfortunately, but he was doing a top-notch job as always. He always does a top-notch job when it comes to his live calls, as does Andrew and Larry with their shows. So appreciate you gentlemen for tuning in. So back to the Rams. I don't think the Rams are going to be losing too much sleep over first-round picks, but this is kind of a boom or bust thing for the Rams. Like, if Stafford doesn't deliver in the next few years, this might be a backfired trade. But it all depends on what Jared Goff will do. I think Jared Goff could have success in Detroit. The problem is that division is always stacked, and the NFC is stacked as is. And I think what I also heard was that the Lions and the Rams are facing one another next year, which is really cool if you ask me. I do know for a fact that the Lions did finish last in the NFC North, and the Rams finished second in the NFC West. But I think the NFC North and the NFC West face one another. I'd have to double check the Rams' schedule, but we're not going to go too deep into the Rams. And I'm not also going to go too deep into the Dodgers. I also did hear that the Dodgers lost Kike Hernandez to the Boston Red Sox, which is a bummer, but I guess it makes up for taking Mookie Betts. We appreciate it, Red Sox. Thanks for Mookie Betts. Anyway, so I think this is a beneficial trade for both the Lions and the Rams, and I think it all depends on what the Rams can do. I think Stafford puts up great numbers, but can he take down some of the best of the best? And I also know that Stafford is going to get to face the Tampa Bay Buccaneers next year. Stafford and the Rams will be facing the Buccaneers next year, because the Bucs got second in the NFC South, and like I said, the Rams got second in the NFC West. So the two will be facing one another next year. So that is really cool, and I'm looking forward to seeing what Stafford can bring. He has good weapons such as Robert Woods, Cooper Kupp, Tyler Higbee, Josh Reynolds, Cam Akers at running back, and I don't know what they're going to do with Gerald Everett, but I think the Rams are going to be much improved. Do I think they can make a deep run in the playoffs? That still remains to be seen, because the Packers are most likely going to keep Aaron Rodgers. Brady's going to be around for another year. The Seahawks are obviously the Seahawks. I'm not so sure about the Saints. The Saints are going to be in a major rebuild, but they still have Alvin Kamara and somewhat can't guard Mike. But we're not concerned about those other teams. All we're concerned about is the Rams, because this is the SoCal Supreme Sports Show, not the other location sports show. But it is good to have some sort of other perspectives, but I digress. So there's that news on the Rams and Dodgers front. So while those two were able to land some big market names on their team. I do have some unfortunate news that I must make note of in terms of the WNBA team from Southern California, and that is the Los Angeles Sparks. So Candice Parker, who has been with the team for about 10 or so years, has signed with the Chicago Sky. So, I mean, obviously I was disappointed. I think the Sparks lost someone else too. But all I know is that they lost Candice Parker to free agency as well, and it's quite the bummer. And I really was I was disappointed, obviously, but obviously when I found out that Candice Parker was from the Chicago area, it makes sense because she's starting to get toward the end of her career. Like, it's getting to the point that she's actually appearing more on inside the NBA instead of like seeing her more on the court. But I digress. But when it comes to the WNBA, that's a whole different topic. So it's tough for the Sparks, and I just hope they can make a big splash in free agency just to make up for it, because obviously if they don't do a whole lot to like repair this whole thing, the Sparks could be in a world of hurt. Like, their playoff run was so disappointing. I think they lost in the second round, but it was like a one and done deal because it was kind of like the NCAA tournament, except the Sparks didn't have like 2 first-round buys. They just had a first-round bye. I'm sorry, they didn't have a first and second-round bye. So they lost in the second round, which was disappointing. I think they lost to Connecticut, if I'm not mistaken. I'm not 100% sure, but they did lose in the second round. They lost by a lot, and it was just disappointing on their part. So I hope the Sparks can turn it around, because I think everyone in Southern California wants to see the Sparks do better than the Clippers, but it still remains to be seen. So anyway, that's pretty much the news on the Sparks, and I wish Candice Parker the best. Like, she is the true CP3 of Los Angeles. Forget Chris Paul. Like, see, Candice Parker helped the Sparks win a championship. What did Chris Paul do? Nothing! I'm sorry if I had to do that, but I had to make a good point. As we say hello to Davidson Crooks. Thank you for tuning in, my man. Says what's good. I was just recapping the Candice Parker signing with Chicago Sky. If you want to hear more about the NBA and WNBA and all sorts of college basketball, definitely check out Fast Break every Sunday at 5 p.m. Pacific Time, 8 p.m. Eastern. I did hear that they're not going to be live this Sunday or they might not be live this Sunday because of the Super Bowl and whatnot, and it's a bummer, but I totally understand, because I think if you listen to Fast Break, you know that one of the hosts is a fan of either the Chiefs or the Bucks, so there's that. So definitely tune into Fast Break, and also tune into the Show That Never Sleeps with Pierre Moss and Harrison Glazer every Wednesday at 3 p.m. Pacific Time, 6 p.m. Eastern. And like I said, my boy Andrew Hagenbaugh is live with the State of Ohio Sports every Friday at 3 p.m. Pacific Time, 6 p.m. Eastern Time. And he also has the Soccer Scoreboard Show going on this Sunday at 2:30 p.m. Pacific Time, 5:30 p.m. Eastern Time. And yes, he's still going to go live despite it being Super Bowl Sunday. Heaven bless this man, and I appreciate you going live, Andrew. So there's that for the free agents in terms of the off season. So before I continue on with the Southern California sports, we have some sponsors we need to get out of the way in terms of house cleaning. Our first sponsor is Legacy Financial. 2020 was a tough year. However, staying positive, keeping the faith, and continuing to work hard is the goal. If you're in a financial struggle at the moment, Legacy Financial is here for you. If you're doing well and you want to get to the next level, you could also call Legacy Financial. Also, if you are looking for an opportunity to work and earn more money part-time, give AO a call at 510-928-2104. That number again is 510-928-2104 to book your appointment today. AO and her husband, Andrew, are just two people on a mission to help families build a legacy. You can follow them on Twitter at legacy_uncut and on Instagram at SimsUncut. Second sponsor for IE Sports Radio, Mom is Always Right Media. Are you feeling overwhelmed with schoolwork? Those essays keeping you up at night? Don't lose sleep. Just pick up the phone. Mom is Always Right Agency will give you quality essays, and they will always meet their deadlines. Sleep soundly knowing they are on the job. For more information, call 626-653-3649. And when it comes to Mama's Always Right Media, they have podcasts as well, such as It Goes Down in the PM. Make sure you check out the newest episode of It Goes Down in the PM, brought to you by Mama's Always Right Media. And their second podcast is Coffee After Dark. Don't miss the next chapter of your favorite love story, as Season 2 is underway in terms of Coffee After Dark, brought to you by Mama's Always Right Media, where they will help you open your business from start to finish. And then the last sponsor for IE Sports Radio is the Sports Rundown. Are you a sports fan but have too much going on in your life these days to keep up with the 24/7 news cycle? Or maybe you're new to sports and want to understand the sports concepts better. If so, the Sports Rundown is for you. They are a new podcast that gives you basic, professional, and collegiate sports news, stats, tidbits, and fun facts by the time you get to work, start your second cup of coffee, or finish walking the dog. Enough information to make you intelligent in terms of a certain sport while talking about current sporting events, and they will teach you something fun along the way, such as mascots, uniforms, history, feel-good stories, and sports rules. They even cover the Premier League, which is a soccer league. New episodes drop Monday and Friday morning, which is today, so come give them a listen. And thank you to our three sponsors for being the official sponsor of IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports. We definitely appreciate you. Alright, so now let's get back to the Southern California sports action. So we're actually going to jump to college basketball, because I'm not going to go full in depth on college basketball at the moment, but I will talk about USC and UCLA. So USC this week won probably a huge game in my opinion. They beat Stanford at Maples Pavilion 72-66. It was quite the victory for the Trojans, as they had to overcome quite a lot of deficits. They didn't lead until late in the game, and they only led for 5 minutes as a whole. So USC was able to get the win, and that win actually helps the Trojans out because they're now one full game back of second place behind UCLA, which hasn't played since last Saturday. So there's that right there, and guess which two teams face one another this week? That's right, USC and UCLA, as the two teams will be facing one another at the Galen Center on the campus of USC, and it's sure to be a fun game, as, again, there's not too much separating these two teams. USC is 14-3, while UCLA is 13-3. UCLA is 9-1 in the conference, while USC is 8-2, and it's definitely going to be a fight to the finish between those two teams. And it's not just going to be for bragging rights. It's for the top spot of the Pac-12 conference. And for USC, they kind of can't afford too many losses going forward, because they already had one terrible loss against Oregon State, which they lost by a deuce. And then they lost to Colorado, which Colorado's actually better than what most people expected them to be. So USC and UCLA play each other on this Saturday on ESPN at 7 p.m. Pacific Time, 10 p.m. Eastern Time. So basically there's going to be a little Pac-12 after dark. And by the way, as a side note, I will be calling the UCLA-USC game this Saturday on USRN2. So definitely tune into that. And definitely tune into The Deuce, as Seth Eves and Matt Owens calls it. And another Pac-12 game that's going to be noteworthy for this Saturday, and I know this doesn't have to do with Southern California, but Colorado and Arizona are going to be facing one another on Saturday. They'll be facing each other at Colorado, and that's going to be a 5 p.m. Pacific start time and an 8 p.m. Eastern time start time. It's going to be on FS1 for those that really care. I know that it's not Southern California, but that is a noteworthy game just because Colorado and Arizona actually aren't too far back from USC. I know UCLA just lost. They didn't lose recently. They lost a couple weeks back to Stanford in overtime, which had all the USC fans just dancing and cheering and hooting and hollering. But as for USC-UCLA, it's going to be a really fun game. UCLA hasn't played since last week, so there may be a little rust. I mean, last night, Oregon looked rusty in its loss to Washington State. They lost 74-71, and Oregon had not played for, God knows when. A lot of their games kept getting postponed because of COVID. They hadn't played since January 23rd, which is, I believe that's quite a ways back. And in Oregon's last game, they lost to Oregon State, which was quite the detrimental loss. So Oregon hadn't played for about almost 2 weeks, 12 days to be exact. They had so many games postponed. They had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. They had 6 games postponed due to COVID, so there's that. And Larry says fight on, and yes, I know, Larry. I know I know you're going for USC, and I think USC has a good chance. My only fear is that they have to take quality shots. I saw their game against Stanford, and it looked like it wasn't going to be good. It looked like USC was looking too far ahead to UCLA, but players such as Taj Edey, the Mobley brothers, and Drew Patterson were doing really well, and and Taj Edey really stepped up. He was the one that had the dagger against Stanford this past Tuesday, and that was an amazing win because it's been way too long since USC last won in Maples Pavilion. That basically was like their house of horrors, and I think back in 2016 or 17, USC actually led by 2, and then they lost off of a half-court buzzer beater, which just sent them in a state of shock, and all the Stanford fans were just went ballistic, and they couldn't believe it, and back when fans were allowed, and back when stadiums were absolutely bananas, but we'll get back there eventually. So, as for me and USC, UCLA, I think USC beats UCLA. Now, obviously I say that for a couple reasons. One, I'm a USC homer, and 2, I think USC has gotten some of their bad games out of the way. I think UCLA has a lot more pressure on them just because they know that the Pac-12 is kind of rickety this season because of the whole pandemic. The top 4 teams in the Pac-12 look legit, and I think those 4 teams will get into the NCAA tournament. Stanford is a bubble team. Oregon could be a bubble team if they get everything together in terms of their postponed games. And then other than that, it's just a clustering all over the place. Washington State's pretty decent, but their Pac-12 record says otherwise, so... But to me, I'm taking USC to win. I hate to pull out the homer card, but I think USC has what it takes. And Andy Enfield really needs to get his team prepared. I think UCLA might be a little bit rusty, and that could play a factor. It's just that, again, USC needs to take quality shots. They need to hit their free throws. That's been a running theme for the Trojans, and Joe Davis and Casey Jacobson were basically saying that a lot on the broadcast of USC-Stanford. USC struggles at the free throw line. And the big thing for USC is that they need to play a full second half. They need to play a 2 full halves, because the second half they always struggle, and that seems to be their house of horrors, and that's also led to USC losing to teams like Oregon State and Colorado. Like, I was even fearing they were going to lose to Stanford, because USC stinks when it comes to Tuesday games. Like, they struggled against UC Riverside on Tuesday. They couldn't beat Oregon State on Tuesday. I know that's coincidental. I know everyone's going to say that's a dumb conspiracy theory, Teran. No, I think it's kind of like one of those logical theories that USC just doesn't play good on Tuesday. I know they beat Stanford, but it kind of got a little ugly, and luckily Taj Edey stepped up. That dude was a beast right there, and I was very proud of Taj Edey personally, and I think USC has what it takes. Evan Mobley is a freaking monster. Like, the dude is a walking double-double. And I think he's going to do great guns. And Isaiah Mobley is kind of gets involved, but it's mainly Evan Mobley who is the better of the Mobley brothers. And one thing I liked about the Mobley brothers is that whoever runs USC's Twitter account made like this funny little Super Mobley brothers, like a reference to the Super Mario brothers, where they said, first we win the Pac-12, then we save the princess. Because Mario and Luigi always had to save the princess. Well, I will respond to that by saying this. First, they beat UCLA, then they win the Pac-12, then they save the princess. Because the Pac-12 is still it's still anyone's conference. Like, between UCLA, USC, Colorado, and Arizona, and maybe Stanford, and maybe Oregon, depending on when they can get all their games rescheduled, it's still anyone's conference. And heck, even the worst teams can give teams a difficult time. Can even give the top tier teams in the Pac-12 a difficult time. So, I think there are no easy nights when it comes to the Pac-12, and I think everyone's got to be on their P's and Q's, especially USC, because they have consistency issues in the past, and especially with this pandemic, like, there's been multiple times where USC has had to put its program on hold because of positive COVID tests, false positive COVID tests, and whatnot, and the list goes on and on of things that have like happened when it comes to the Trojans. So there's that right there. But I like USC's chances. I'm going with the Trojans. Call me a homer all you want, but I'm taking USC to beat UCLA at Galen Center. Let's do this, boys. And remember the last time UCLA and USC played at Galen. Absolutely legendary. Just look it up. Just look up UCLA USC ending from 2020. It was quite the amazing thing. It was a beautiful thing. All right, so enough about the college hoops. We'll be getting back into that in a little bit, but let's talk about some NBA right now. Let's keep it on the hardwood, and let's talk some NBA action, as the Lakers seem to be back on track. Last night they beat the Denver Nuggets 114-93. They actually trailed by 12 at halftime, and I'm thinking, oh boy, this is not going to turn out well. And then the Lakers pulled out the reverse card and turned the tables on Denver. They really did a good job of keeping Nikola Jokic in check, and I thought I was quite impressed that they kept Nikola Jokic in check. And LeBron obviously had a triple-double. The thing about LeBron is that was his 800th 25-plus point performance, and that is mind-blowing. I think that's like more than half of his games he's played. So honestly, that's quite the amazing statistic and quite the amazing milestone for LeBron. So good stuff right there for King James, and so much for being a washed king, in my opinion. So Lakers pulled off the win last night. Very impressive win. On Monday, the Lakers ended their 7-game road trip with a win over the Atlanta Hawks, 107-99. Obviously, the Lakers struggled but they got the job done in the fourth quarter. And then also LeBron had an unfortunate run-in with courtside Karen, which I won't go fully into that, but sometimes fans need to like keep their mouths closed. Like I swear, man, it's like very dumb. Like please just let the players play and don't be jerkish and whatnot. So let the players play and just keep your nose out of it. Like that's just my take. Anyway, so this past Saturday, the Lakers also beat the Boston Celtics 96-95. Always a great victory whenever the Lakers beat the Celtics. It wasn't really the prettiest victory because the Lakers almost gave that game away, but the Celtics decided to make the dumbest decision ever by letting one of their star players, who was 1 for 10 from the field, take the game-winning shot. And it backfired on them. And it seemed like there was a lot of injuries that were happening, as I think it was Marcus Smart got hurt, and eventually, and also Anthony Davis got hit in the man area, but that wasn't really the floor's fault. I don't know how Marcus Smart got hurt. Maybe he like hyperextended something. He didn't land on anyone's foot. Maybe he just landed awkwardly, and then his leg kind of gave out on him. So I don't know, man. But either way, the Lakers are back to their winning ways. They're 17-6. They actually have the same record as the Los Angeles Clippers. Unfortunately, the Clippers hold the tiebreaker over the Lakers for now. But when the Lakers and the Clippers meet again, I hope the Lakers can get the victory over them. I digress, though. I digress regarding the Lakers. So, the Lakers games this coming week, from now until next week, are on Saturday, which is tomorrow. The Lakers play the Detroit Pistons. That is a 7 p.m. start time. It's going to be at Staples Center. The Lakers obviously know not to underestimate the Detroit Pistons. This time they'll most likely have Anthony Davis available, possibly. Who knows? And they know they can't allow the Detroit Pistons to come in their house and get the sweep. Like, that would be embarrassing. Pistons are probably I think they're the worst team in the Eastern Conference, and they can't get the 2-game sweep over the Lakers, the reigning champions. That would be bad, man. It would be bad. So, Lakers play the Pistons tomorrow at 7 p.m. Pacific time at Staples Center. Then on Monday, the Lakers still stay at Staples Center to face the Oklahoma City Thunder. That game is a 7 p.m. Pacific time start. And then on Wednesday, the Lakers also play the Thunder again. Same time, same place, except it's going to be on a Wednesday. And then next Friday, the Lakers play the Memphis Grizzlies. Now, the Grizzlies are kind of the interesting team as of late, as the Grizzlies have had to postpone a bunch of games because of COVID outbreaks and whatnot. And I think that it's going to end. I think the Grizzlies are kind of hungry. They're a little rusty, but I think the Grizzlies are going to come out hungry. And they did play the Lakers a little closer than they did the first time. I think they played them twice, actually. But I do remember one of the times the Lakers only beat the Grizzlies by 4, so we'll see. But it's good to see the Lakers back in Staples Center, because it's a 5-game homestand, and that 5-game homestand started yesterday. So good to see the Lakers are back to home cooking, because they were on the road for the past 2 or so weeks, and they went 5-2 in their little 7-game road trip. I'm not going to call it the Grammy trip, because the Grammys aren't here. They got postponed or canceled or whatnot. Either way, the Lakers went 5-2 on the road trip. Pretty good record, honestly. I'm actually quite impressed, especially since some of those teams were actually legit. Their only terrible loss was to Detroit, and the Lakers have a chance to make that up tomorrow. Excuse me. So there's that right there. So that's pretty much going to do it on the Lakers. Now let's go to the other team in Los Angeles in terms of the NBA, the Clippers. So the Clippers tonight play the Boston Celtics at Staples Center. That's going to be a fun matchup. Now, I know the Celtics have been struggling as of late, but the Celtics are actually halfway decent. Like, despite them having an 11-9 record, they're still fourth in the Eastern Conference. I know the Eastern Conference has been a gigantic cluster, but I think the Celtics can present a challenge to the Clippers. But I think the Clippers can come out on top. This past Wednesday, the Clippers dominated the Cleveland Cavaliers 121-99. Not too big of a surprise there, but I thought the Clippers were just the better team. Like, nothing against the Cavs. The Cavs have definitely improved, and I wish them nothing but the best. But Paul George just shut the lights out. He had 36 points, 13 of 20 from the field. I think he had like 8 or 9 threes. Like, good golly. And then Ivica Zubac, the former Laker, had himself a big day on the boards. And then Paul George also chipped in 6 assists, and he didn't turn the ball over as well. So I think Paul George is looking pretty good. But this is the regular season. Like, if Paul George wants to be taken seriously, he needs to do well in the postseason. So yeah. So good stuff on the Clippers' part, beating the Cavs. The night before they beat the Cavaliers, the Clippers lost to the Brooklyn Nets 124-120. The Clippers were actually leading for the most part, and then I saw the Nets were up, and then I saw the Nets win, and I'm like, oh, oops. sorry, Clippers. The Nets did get a 39-point performance from Kyrie Irving, despite a 33-point performance from Kawhi Leonard. They also got, the Clippers got 10 boards from Serge Ibaka, and then they got 6 assists from PG-13. James Harden actually had 12 boards, which is quite astounding. Not bad for a shooting guard. And then James Harden also had 14 assists, which he also chipped in 23 points for the triple-double. So good stuff for the Nets, as that I don't think that's really a bad loss. But everyone, to the people who keep calling it a finals preview, stop. I don't want to hear any more of that. Like, it's so stupid. It's like, did the Lakers drop off the face of the earth? Did everyone forget that the Clippers have the second round curse? Like, what are these people thinking? And did we also forget that the Nets all have probably a shoddy track record in the postseason? Like, I keep telling people that the Nets won't get out of the second round, but that could be wrong. But I don't know. I think that if the Nets play a team like Boston or the Sixers, actually no, not the Sixers, or the Bucks, then they will be in deep trouble. So I'm just saying, y'all. I'm not trying to hail on the Nets, but I don't buy what they're selling. So this past Sunday, the Clippers defeated the New York Knicks 129-115. Sorry, Pierre, if you're still listening, which you're probably not because you're doing your live call. And then last Friday, the Clippers defeated the Orlando Magic 116-90. Quite the demolition, but that's not surprising because it's the Magic. Let's be real. So anyway, like I said, the Clippers play the Celtics tonight. They play the Kings on Sunday. That's a 12 p.m. Pacific start time game. Then next Wednesday, the Clippers play the Minnesota Timberwolves. It's going to be at Minnesota. And then next Friday, the Clippers play the Chicago Bulls, which I can see the Clippers winning. Like, I think the Clippers have quite the favorable schedule this week. Like, the only tough game they have, really, is the Celtics game. Maybe the Kings game, depending on how fired up the Kings are. But this year, the Clippers have actually socked it to the Kings quite a bit. So there's that. And like I said, both the Lakers and Clippers are 17-6. Clippers and Lakers are the second and third seed of the Western Conference. And that's pretty much that for the NBA portion of this show. As the Utah Jazz are 17-5, they're a half a game above the Clippers and the Lakers, but we're not looking toward the playoffs just yet. Like, we ain't talking playoffs just yet. So, yeah, playoffs. We talking playoffs? Like, we gotta still make it through the regular season and whatnot. So there's that. So that's going to do it for the NBA portion of the show. Let's head to the ice, as as we have some hockey to discuss, as this past Tuesday marked the first meeting of the freeway face-off between the Anaheim Ducks and the Los Angeles Kings. And like I said earlier, the Anaheim Ducks emerged victorious against the Los Angeles Kings, winning 3-1. That's a big victory for the Ducks. Like, obviously the Kings and the Ducks aren't really the greatest teams in the NHL, but it's a good moral victory for the Ducks. And I thought it was quite the impressive victory. The defense didn't look too bad, which is quite the statement, because both the Kings and the Ducks defense is absolutely muy malo, if you ask me. So, in terms of the Anaheim Ducks, their goal scorers included David Backus, David Backus, who had 1 goal. Nicholas Deslauriers had 1 goal and 1 assist. And in terms of other goals, Danton Heinen had 1 goal as well. In terms of assists, the Ducks got an assist from Carter Rowney, and then they also got an assist from Jakob Silverberg, and I guess they got an own goal assist from Sam Steele, but we don't really count that. Anyway, Jonathan Gibson, a.k.a. Gibby, had himself a big game in the net, recording 21 saves and only allowing 1 goal, which is quite amazing. So, good stuff for you, Gibby. So, as for the Ducks, the team that came up on the short end of the stick, Arthur Kaliev was the one that scored the lone goal for the LA Kings, as he was assisted by Michael Amadio. So, there's that. Calvin Peterson had 42 saves while allowing 2 goals. If anyone's wondering how he only allowed 2 goals, it's that the Ducks scored off of an empty netter. So there's that. But the fact of the matter is that the Ducks take the first round of the freeway face-off, and that's always a good thing. Like, it's always good to beat your rival. And I had a feeling the Ducks would win, because they had quite the tough past couple games, if you know what I mean, as they actually lost on Sunday and Saturday to the St. Louis Blues. They lost on Sunday 4-1 against the Blues, and they lost 6-1 against the Blues. And my God, St. Louis really socked it to them. Like, the second game actually was slightly better. Like, the second game, the Ducks were up 1-0, and then everyone was wondering, wait, is this true? And a few of my buddies were saying, where are the goals, Blues? And eventually the Blues were saving those goals for the second and third quarter, which made me sad. That was such a difficult loss for the Ducks, as it was pretty ugly, as Jonathan Gibson had 19 saves, but he did allow 4 goals. He didn't get yanked, as the only goal scorer for the Anaheim Ducks was Jakob Silverberg, who had 1 goal. Ryan Getzlaf had an assist, and Hampus Lindholm had an assist, which I presume one of those assists came off of an own goal, or came off of a goal from the St. Louis Blues. So this was this past Sunday's game, and then this past Saturday the Ducks got hammered by the Blues 6-1. So this was the game that we saw Jonathan Gibson get subbed out, as Ryan Miller took over in goal. Jonathan Gibson had 3 saves, but he did allow 3 goals, which is really tough. But again, the St. Louis Blues are really good. Like, you can't fault anyone for that. It's not the goalie's fault. It's just that the Blues are such a good team. And then Ryan Miller recorded 21 saves, but gave up 3 goals. Not a pretty night for the Ducks, as their lone goal scorer came from Max Jones. Ryan Raquel, Ryan Getzlaf each had 1 assist, or Ricard Raquel had 1 assist, and that's that for the statistics of that second game between the Blues and the Ducks. So the Ducks play the San Jose Sharks tonight at the Honda Center at 7 p.m. and they also play the Sharks this Saturday at the Honda Center. Both game times are slated for 7 p.m. and that's pretty cool. So now the schedule gets a little bit tougher for the Ducks after they play the Sharks, as next Tuesday or this upcoming Tuesday the Ducks travel to Sin City to play the Las Vegas Golden Knights, and then next Thursday the Ducks play the Golden Knights again at Las Vegas. Both those game times are slated for 7 p.m. and there's that right there. So as for the Kings, so the Kings had themselves quite the hiatus in terms of games from tonight all the way from last week, as they obviously lost to the Ducks, but they didn't have a game. But prior to that Ducks game that they had on Tuesday, they didn't have a game since last Thursday. Like, they didn't have a game other than the Ducks-Kings game. The Kings didn't have any other games from now all the way till last week, which was quite surprising. I want to say that might have played into the Kings being so rusty defensively, but I don't know. So as for I forgot to mention the Kings' saves and the Kings' stats. And by the way, this game took place at Staples Center, just a fair reminder. So anyway, the Kings got 40 saves from Calvin Peterson, but he did allow 2 goals, as one of the other goals was an empty netter. So there's that. I'm surprised it was quite close until the end, but you gotta give it up for the Ducks for pulling out the victory and whatnot. So there's that. So the Kings' next game is tonight, and they play the Las Vegas Golden Knights. It's going to be at Las Vegas. And then on Sunday, the game is slated for 7 p.m. Pacific time, 10 p.m. Eastern. And then the Kings also play the Golden Knights at noon Pacific time, 3 p.m. Eastern time. And that game is also going to be slated for Las Vegas. The Kings will return home to Staples Center to play the San Jose Sharks on Tuesday and on Thursday. Both games are slated for 7 p.m. And it's going to be a good clash, as both SoCal teams will be facing the San Jose Sharks, which is really cool. So it's SoCal versus NorCal. So anyway, as for the standings, in the West, the Ducks have played 11 games. They are 1-5-2 with 10 points, while the Kings have played 9 games. They are 3-4-2 with 8 points. So there's your standings right there, and there's pretty much your Kings news right there, or your Kings and Ducks news right there. Your hockey news, your hockey fix, and let's continue onward, shall we? So this past Wednesday was National Signing Day, and surprisingly, it was very quiet for UCLA. Like, I kept reading stories that UCLA had a quiet signing day, as they didn't get too many recruits, as most of their signees came back in December or whenever the first signing day was. USC had quite the eventful signing day, as they had a lot of their players signed their letter of intent, and they also had another 4-star recruit commit to USC, and that was I think his first name is pronounced Rayshawn Davis of Mater Dei High School, which obviously for you high school football buffs out there, that's a big deal. And he was a 4-star recruit, and that defense is looking stacked for USC, as they have Corey Foreman and Rayshawn Davis, and the dude from Loyola, that's a cornerback that's signed to USC, and I think that USC defense is looking good. My only fear for USC is their run game and their offensive line. They really need to boost their offensive line, and I did hear that one offensive lineman chose Stanford over USC despite getting an offer from the Trojans, and that sucks, because it would have been great to see USC get a powerhouse player such as a powerhouse player to like help boost their offensive line. But it is what it is. Like, we can't complain. Like, if anything, the defense is gonna look stacked. It's gonna be a little young, but I think for the next 2 to 3 years, that USC defense is gonna look pretty solid. Again, it's just all about the offensive line and getting Kedon Slovis back to perfect form, because he really fell apart in that Pac-12 championship game, which I don't like talking about, but it's really true. He really disappointed me. I was so sad that he just had such a bad game against Oregon, and it's still to this day, Oregon is the house of horrors for USC, but I just hope the Trojans turn it around. USC actually has the number 8 recruiting class in the nation, which is awesome sauce. I actually was very surprised, and part of that is thanks to Corey Foreman committing to USC, because he was the number 1 recruit in the nation coming out of Corona Centennial, which is pretty much Larry's neck of the woods. But that Rayshawn Davis and Corey Foreman together is going to be some major fire, which is going to be awesome. I really got to stop with the random outbursts of random voices. But that's pretty much... I didn't want to talk too much about it. And San Diego State also got some good players as well. But USC was the main headliner for Southern California football in terms of getting recruits. And I think there's going to be some high expectations for the Trojans next year. There are some people that are saying that Arizona State will win the Pac-12 South. I can see that, but I don't know. Like, it all depends on what happens next year. I mean, Kedon Slovis is going to be back. USC obviously is going to be losing quite a bit of receivers, and they're going to be light on the running backs. And it all depends on what happens with Arizona State going forward. But they are going to bring back Jaden Daniels, who is a native of California, having grown up in the Cajon area. So there's that. But that's going to do it for the high school football / college football portion of the show. Unfortunately for everyone... Well, actually, no. There is the final news. There is the one bit of news from the NCAA side of things that NCAA... There's going to be an NCAA college football game being released from EA Sports, which is awesome. And I'm glad everyone, their mothers, were having a big cow about it. I'm not too big of a video game buff, honestly, but I am happy that there is going to be a NCAA college football game, and it's going to be a fun time. I'm just wondering who's going to be announcing the games, such as who's going to be the commentator and who's going to be the play-by-play. Like, I hope it's someone worthy. Like, I hope it's like maybe, I don't know, maybe Mike Tirico and Tony Dungy. Bleh. I don't think they're gonna get like Tony Romo or Jim Nantz to commentate the game. I just hope it's not like Joe Tessitore and not Joe Tessitore. They can have Tessitore call the games on the NCAA college football game. I just don't want Booger on there. No one wants to hear Booger McFarland commentate and say that dude is a Popeye's biscuit away from being an offensive lineman. Or a tight end. I forget. But anyway, that's pretty much the full-on news from the NCAA football portion, and I guess the high school portion of this show. I think it is fair to say that USC is going to have a talented class for this upcoming year, but we'll see. We shall see. And we're actually going to take ourselves a quick little commercial break. When we come back, we will continue to we'll actually dive on into some college sports. I'll just speak briefly about some of the college sports that happened, and I'll eventually get to college basketball. I already talked about the Pac-12 and USC and UCLA, but I also have other conferences to look at, so there's that in terms of women's and men's basketball. So you're listening to the SoCal Supreme Sports Show right here on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports. We'll be right back after these messages.
Hey sports fans, do you like wine? Well, we've got the show for you. This is Let's Wine About Sports, a show where we talk about wine and sports simultaneously. From the classic Cabernet Sauvignon all the way down to the grapes that you've never even heard of before. Oh yeah, we cover it all. And we'll talk about a little bit of sports as well. Football, hockey, collegiate, women's sports, it doesn't matter. We're going to talk about it all, and we're going to whine about it all. So join me Monday at 8 p.m. on IU Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports.
What's good, fight fans? It's your boy, Marcus Los Great, here to give you what you want, here to give you what you need. Yeah, man. Yeah. I'm coming to you live, straight from your mama's basement with a crispy, awesome white tea. They are coming to you live every Tuesday at 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Powered by IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports.
And you can check out all of our amazing shows on all of our different platforms such as Spreaker, TuneIn, YouTube, Apple Podcasts, you name it. So yeah, definitely tune into all of our shows. Definitely tune into Gloves Off with my homeboy Marcus Los Great. I just gotta say, Marcus is actually approaching his 50th episode of Gloves Off, and I can't believe it. And it's gonna be really fun, and I definitely want to say congratulations to him. Like, I'll be saying congratulations to him on Tuesday. I'll save the congratulations until then. And then also definitely check out Let's Whine About Sports. Side note for Let's Whine About Sports. Let's Whine About Sports is now on Sundays at 6 p.m. Pacific Time, 9 p.m. Eastern Time. He is no longer on Mondays, so it's going to be a fun time. And once I get everything knocked out of the way, I will be definitely tuning in. Like, I always tune in for all my teammate shows. So there's that. So, and again, and you can follow IE Sports Radio on Twitter and on Instagram at IE Sports Radio, and you could like and follow them on Facebook by typing in IE Sports Radio in the search bar and clicking IE Sports Radio which has the black background and the white letters. And then also you could subscribe to IE Sports Radio on YouTube, and the IE Sports Radio website is www.iesportsradio.com. Alright, so now let's get into segment 2 of the SoCal Supreme Sports Show, as we have less than an hour before our next show goes live. So let's get on into some NCAA water polo action. So last week's water polo scores consisted of last Saturday, where UCLA defeated Pepperdine 15-9 at UCLA. They had some youngsters that were named Players of the Week and Freshman of the Week. They had Tanner Police. I believe Tanner Police was named Freshman of the Week, and Mikado Kenny was named Player of the Week. And for good. And the reason why I make note of them is because they're actually from my neck of the woods in Newport Beach, and also they're Southern California products. They came from, Mikado Kenny came from Newport Harbor High School, while Tanner Police came from Corona Del Mar High School. But they're both dominant in their sports, and they are both humble kids. And if you check out their backstory, you will definitely be a fan of both Tanner and Mikado. We just call him Mo, but you get what I mean. So UCLA defeated Pepperdine 15-9. Air Force defeated LMU in overtime 15-13 at LMU, and then LMU defeated Air Force 18-17 at LMU. So quite the high-scoring affair for LMU and Air Force. That was actually a doubleheader, by the way, so good stuff there by LMU and Air Force. So the games, those were actually surprisingly the only games for that week. So the games for this week are UCLA versus Cal at USC, Stanford at USC, Cal at USC. This is actually for tomorrow's games. Like I said, UCLA versus Cal at USC, Stanford at USC, Cal at USC, LMU at Cal Baptist. That's going to be a doubleheader. And then on Sunday, UCLA plays Stanford at USC, and then UCLA plays at USC. UCLA, Stanford, Cal, and UCLA are all in the Mountain Pacific Sports Federation Conference, and that's why they're facing one another and whatnot. And those are the only and that's pretty much the only Southern California men's water polo games going on, and that did went on this past week. So there's that right there. And I also do actually now got to make a note that Cal State Northridge's women, now that we're on the topic of water polo, Cal State Northridge's women's water polo program has opted out of play for this year, which really sucks, but it's for the safety of their program. And I actually need to get to another point of Cal State Northridge's sports team. So if you all have been listening to this portion of the show, I've been making notes saying that Cal State Northridge has not played a game in women's basketball. The reason being is because their women's basketball team has opted out, and I failed to realize that, which is completely my bad, so the nerve of me. So, yeah, that was my bad. But Cal State Northridge women's water polo and women's basketball have both opted out, which is disappointing, but it is what it is. As the Big West Conference in women's water polo will be kicking off this weekend as... Well, I think it's this... I don't think it's this weekend. I think it's next weekend. So... But it will be a fun time, and I'll be talking about that quite a bit. I am a big water polo buff, if you ask me. So anyway, moving on from water polo, we have college swim and dive. So the meets from last week consisted of San Diego State defeating Pepperdine 140-111. Cal men defeating USC 107-76, and Cal women defeating USC 207-119. San Diego at San Diego State got postponed from last week, which is a bummer, but it is what it is. And then Cal swim and dive defeated UCLA swim and dive 210-119. And as for the swim meets coming up, we have a swim meet going on right now as Cal Baptist is facing meets off against Air Force. Concordia plays Cal Baptist today. And and that's it. So that's it for the swim and dive news regarding Southern California. That's pretty much what I gathered. So if I missed anything, I apologize. So anyway, as for the college tennis scores from last week, from Thursday all the way back to last Friday, Cal State Fullerton kicked off its season by beating Concordia of Irvine 4-3 at Fullerton. And then the up-and-coming matches for this week are Grand Canyon at Cal Poly, Cal State Fullerton at USC, and BYU at Cal Poly. Now, as for men's college tennis scores from last week, last Saturday we had USC defeating LMU 7-0, UC Irvine defeating LMU 4-3, and then Boise State and UCLA got postponed, which is sad face. And Cal Poly defeated San Diego State 5-2. I'm actually going to look up if UCLA men's tennis and Boise State got postponed. I want to say it didn't actually. No, it did get canceled. So I forgot to post that on my notes. So which is my bad. So anyway, the up and coming Southern California tennis matches for this week are, as of today, we have LMU at Arizona State, Cal Poly at San Diego or University of San Diego, UC Irvine at USC rounds off today's games. As for Sunday's games, we have Cal Poly at LMU, ALMU at Arizona, and San Diego State at USC. As for Thursday, we have Cal Poly at St. Mary's, which is going to be a fun time. So now let's go into women's soccer games, as Cal Baptist defeated St. Catherine 5-0. St. Catherine, I believe, is an NA high school, while Cal Baptist is an NCAA school, so there's that. So as for the up-and-coming women's soccer matches from now until next Thursday, we have Nevada at San Diego State, which is today, Cal Baptist at Pacific, which is tomorrow, and then Sunday we have Boise State at San Diego State and UCLA at Pepperdine. So those are the women's soccer matches. Men's soccer matches did not happen last week in terms of Southern California, and for February 8th, we have San Francisco traveling to UCLA, and then we also have Dixie State playing San Diego State on Thursday, February 11th. For a showdown in San Diego. So that's going to be that for all the college sports, the miscellaneous college sports. I don't really like to go too in-depth on those, but if you all want me to, then I wouldn't mind doing so. It would be cool if I did. So there's that. So anyway, let's jump on into some NCAA men's basketball action. As of right now, we have Cal Baptist playing New Mexico State right now. It's early in the first half, so I don't need to go over that too much. So as for the NCAA men's basketball games regarding Southern California, we have UC Irvine beating Cal State Bakersfield 70-53, and that's pretty much that, as most of the games got canceled or postponed. UC Riverside at Cal State Fullerton got postponed. Long Beach State at UC Santa Barbara got postponed. San Diego State at New Mexico also got postponed, which is pretty much that right there. Thursday, we did not have any Southern California teams face off against one another, as well as Wednesday. Tuesday, like I said, we had USC defeating Stanford 72-66. On Monday, or this past Monday, we had no Southern California men's basketball teams playing. Sunday, we had UC Riverside defeating UC San Diego 71-59. That was the only game that went on this past Sunday in terms of NCAA men's basketball. And then last Saturday, we had Pepperdine getting the brakes beaten off of them against Gonzaga 97-75. UCLA squeaked by Oregon State 57-52. UC Santa Barbara edged UC Davis in overtime 89-86. Cal Baptist fell to Dixie State 79-75. San Diego State trounced Wyoming 98-71. Cal State Bakersfield defeating Cal State Fullerton 83-73. And Hawaii edged UC Irvine 62-61 in overtime. That was actually UC Irvine's first Big West Conference loss of the season. Now, I kind of figured they would lose sometime down the road. I just didn't think it was going to be to Hawaii. But it is tough winning at Stan Sheriff Center and whatnot. I think for UC Irvine, this is going to be a good lesson for them, as they'll learn from this, and they're better off losing now than losing in the Big West Conference tournament, because that sometimes does happen to them. Like, sometimes they'll only lose one or so games, and then they lose when it matters most in the Big West Conference game. And yeah, so UC Irvine has nothing to worry about, and they're also having a great year in terms of NCAA men's basketball. So last Friday, we had UC Santa Barbara trouncing UC Davis 72-51. Cal Baptist beat Dixie State 89-74. We had Cal State Fullerton defeating Cal State Bakersfield 90-84. We had UC Irvine squeaking by Hawaii 53-51. And that was that in terms of NCAA men's basketball from last week. As for the upcoming NCAA men's basketball games regarding Southern California, we have Pacific at San Diego tomorrow at 1 p.m. Pacific Time, Pepperdine at Portland tomorrow at 4 p.m. Pacific Time, 7 p.m. Eastern, UC Riverside at Cal State Fullerton tomorrow at 5 p.m. Pacific Time, Cal Baptist at New Mexico State tomorrow at 6 p.m. Pacific Time. Then obviously we have UCLA at USC, which is a 7 p.m. Pacific Time start. We have Cal State Bakersfield at UC Irvine at 7 p.m. Pacific Time. And that's that, because UC San Diego's game against Sacramento State got canceled. Loyola Marymount at St. Mary's got canceled. Loyola Marymount at St. Mary's got postponed. Long Beach State at UC Santa Barbara got postponed. And that's that for tomorrow's Southern California men's basketball slate of games. There are no Southern California men's basketball games on Sunday, but Monday we have San Jose State taking on San Diego State at 8 p.m. Pacific Time. Basically, we're going to get our Mountain West Conference after dark. That's going to be some fun times in terms of California right there. On Tuesday, we have Pepperdine playing San Francisco at 2 p.m. Pacific Time. Wednesday, we have Part 2 of San Jose State at San Diego State at 8 p.m. Pacific Time. Thursday, we will have San Diego at Pacific at noon Pacific Time. We have Pepperdine at Loyola Marymount for their little rivalry game at 6 p.m. Pacific Time. We have USC at Washington at 7 p.m. Pacific Time. UCLA at Washington State at 8 p.m. Pacific Time. That's going to be some Pac-12 after dark action right there. And that's going to be that. As next Friday, we will also have Long Beach State at UC Davis, depending on what Long Beach State status is. UC Irvine at UC Riverside at 4 p.m. Pacific Time. Cal State Fullerton at Cal Poly is slated for 4 p.m. Pacific Time next Friday. UC San Diego at Cal State Bakersfield is slated for 7 p.m. Pacific Time. UC Santa Barbara and Hawaii finishes up the Southern California slate with an 8:59 Pacific start. Pacific Standard Time start. And if you're watching in Hawaii, which you're probably not, because I don't think there's any fans that's supposed to be at Hawaii in terms of the pandemic. That's going to be a 5:59 start time. So there's that. And if you're watching on the East Coast, I feel horrible for you. So that's that for the NCAA men's basketball scores. As let's just double check the. No. There hasn't been anything going on as of late. Just the Cal State Bakersfield and UC Irvine game getting done. UC Irvine trounced Bakersfield 70-53. My God, that was quite the doozy right there. So now let's go to the NCAA women's basketball side of things. All of the Southern California games or games involving Southern California have been complete. Washington State, this is the big shocker of the night in terms of NCAA women's basketball in terms of Southern California. Washington State upset number 5 UCLA 67-63. Ouch-o Rama. New Mexico State steamrolled San Diego State 65-48. Cal Baptist staying undefeated against New Mexico State, winning 94-53. They are 15-0 on the season. Yeesh. Cal Poly edged Hawaii in overtime, 79-71. Long Beach State pulled away against UC Santa Barbara, 61-49. Long Beach State is 9-0 in Big West Conference play. That is some good stuff. Cal State Bakersfield pulled out the reverse card against UC Irvine and beat them 73-65. Quite the impressive win for the Roadrunners, as that's actually UC Irvine's first conference loss of the season. So, tough break for UC Irvine women's basketball. UC Riverside defeated Cal State Fullerton 55-43, and that rounds up all the scores that went on today in terms of NCAA women's basketball. Thursday, we had BYU beating Pepperdine 75-61. San Diego defeated Loyola Marymount 51-43, and that was that in terms of NCAA women's basketball scores involving Southern California. New Mexico State dominated San Diego State 84-48, which was a tough Wednesday game for the Aztecs. There were no Southern California women's basketball games on Tuesday. San Diego did beat Portland this past Monday on the NCAA women's basketball side 69-62, as that was the only game slated in terms of Southern California women's basketball games. On Sunday, we had USC defeating Arizona State 65-57. Santa Clara beat Pepperdine 66-57, and that was that in terms of Southern California teams playing in NCAA women's basketball. Last Saturday, we had Pepperdine losing barely at home against Santa Clara 68-64. San Diego State got whomped by Wyoming 62-41. Loyola Marymount got stomped on by San Francisco 84-66. Cal Poly beat UC Riverside 67-53. UC Davis beat UC Santa Barbara 78-61. Long Beach State was all over UC San Diego, winning 74-53. Cal State Bakersfield edged Cal State Fullerton 57-56, and that was that for all the Southern California women's basketball games from last Saturday. So let's go to last Friday. We had UCLA edging Arizona State 60-57. Cal Poly defeated UC Riverside 56-43. UC Irvine beat Hawaii 82-68. UC Davis barely squeaked by UC Santa Barbara 67-65. Tough break for the Gauchos. Long Beach State squeaked by UC San Diego 54-50. Bakersfield defeated Fullerton 67-54, or Cal State Bakersfield and defeated Cal State Fullerton. And that was that for all the games that were played last week on the NCAA women's basketball side in terms of Southern California. So this coming week, this Saturday or tomorrow, Loyola Marymount plays BYU. Cal Baptist plays New Mexico State at Cal Baptist. Cal Poly plays Hawaii at Cal Poly. UC Santa Barbara plays at Long Beach State. UC Irvine plays at Cal State Bakersfield. Cal State Fullerton plays at UC Riverside. And Pepperdine plays San Diego for all the games that are slated for tomorrow in terms of NCAA women's basketball. So Sunday we have USC playing Washington State on Sunday. And we have UCLA playing Washington. And that's that for the NCAA women's basketball games on Sunday. On Monday, we have San Diego against Loyola Marymount, while San Diego State at San Jose State is canceled. Tuesday, we have no Southern California women's basketball games in the Division I side. Same with Wednesday. Thursday, we have San Diego at St. Mary's, which is the only NCAA women's basketball game involving a Southern California team. Friday, we have UCLA at Utah and USC at Colorado. We also have Grand Canyon at Cal Baptist, which is an early game, an 11 a.m. Pacific start game. I think that's going to be a fun game. Grand Canyon versus Cal Baptist. That Grand Canyon team looks pretty solid, so that might be the team that has the best shot at defeating CBU. You also have UC Riverside at UC Irvine on Friday. And then the big matchup of the Big West Conference is probably going to be UC Davis at Long Beach State, that's probably going to be a first place showdown unless something happens with UC Davis, as UC Davis's games have been postponed for the most part. But I think, if I remember correctly, I think UC Davis was slated to win the Big West Conference. If not, it was Cal Poly. But either way, it's going to be a fun game. Cal Poly plays at Cal State Fullerton on Friday. We have Hawaii playing UC Santa Barbara, and then rounding off next Friday's games, we have Cal State Bakersfield at UC San Diego. So there's all your NCAA men's and women's basketball scores. Now let's look at the conferences, starting with the men's side. I already talked about the Pac-12 on the men's side, so let's just jump to let's jump to the Big West Conference. As looking at the Big West Conference men's basketball standings, we have UC Irvine at 6-1. This is in terms of conference play. UC Irvine is 6-1. UC Santa Barbara is 8-2. UC Riverside is 5-2. Cal State Bakersfield is 7-4. Long Beach State is 2-2. Cal State Northridge is 3-4. Cal State Fullerton is 4-6. UC San Diego is 1-4, and Cal Poly is 1-7. Also, I gotta make note that UC Davis is 1-4, and Hawaii is 3-5. As for overall records, UC Irvine is 10-5. UC Santa Barbara is 12-3. UC Riverside is 8-4. Cal State Bakersfield is 11-7. Long Beach State is 3-5. Cal State Northridge is 7-7. Cal State Bakersfield is 5-6. UC San Diego is 3-5, and Cal Poly is 3-11. And Hawaii is 5-5, and UC Davis is 3-6 as well. So there's that for the the Big West Conference men's basketball standings. So now let's go to the Western Athletic Conference, as Cal Baptist, in terms of men's basketball, is 3-3 in conference play and 8-5 overall. They are in fourth place behind Utah Valley, UT Rio Grande, and Grand Canyon University in terms of the Western Athletic Conference. So there's that right there. And as for San Diego State, if I can find them, San Diego State is currently 7-3 in the Mountain West Conference and 13-4 overall. They are behind Colorado State, Utah State, and Boise State. So there's your NCAA men's basketball standings. I've got volleyball in my brain. I've been watching too much of it. Gosh dang it. So now let's jump to the NCAA women's basketball standings in terms of all of the Southern California schools, or involving all the Southern California schools. We'll start with the Pac-12 because Power 5 conference and whatnot. So as for the Pac-12 in terms of UCLA and USC, UCLA is 8-3 in the conference while USC is 5-6. UCLA trail is 2.5 games behind Oregon, Arizona State, and Stanford. Stanford leads the conference at 12-2, while Arizona State is 9-2 and Oregon is 9-3. UCLA is 10-3 overall, while USC is 7-7 overall. So there's that in terms of your standings right there. Let's now jump to the Mountain West Conference in terms of women's basketball standings. San Diego State, poor San Diego State. They are 8-3 in conference play, 5-12 overall. I hope they are way behind everyone. They are 6 games behind of first place. So poor San Diego State women's basketball. Hopefully they could turn it around. I think they can. Not really, though. I'm sorry. Now let's jump to the Big West Conference. So the Big West Conference is led by Long Beach State. They are 9-0 in conference play, while UC Irvine is 5-1 after suffering their first conference loss of the season to Bakersfield. Cal Poly is 4-3. Cal State Bakersfield is 5-4. UC Riverside is 3-4. UC San Diego is 2-5. UC Santa Barbara is 2-6, and Cal State Fullerton is 0-9. Just as a reminder, and just so I don't mess this up, Cal State Northridge women's basketball has opted out. They have not started their season. Their season is not going to happen because they opted out. Just got to get that out of the way. Anyway, so as for overall standings in the Big West Conference, Long Beach State is 10-1, UC Irvine is 8-6, Cal Poly is 8-5, Cal State Bakersfield is 7-6, UC Riverside is 6-7, UC San Diego is 2-5, UC Santa Barbara is 2-10, and Cal State Fullerton, poor Cal State Fullerton, is 1-12. I hope they can get a Big West Conference win soon. It's also worth noting in the Big West Conference that UC Davis is 4-0 in the conference, and they're 5-0 overall. And Long Beach State and UC Davis face one another next week. That is going to be a great match. That's going to be a great game. And I know I don't want to be a homer, but I hope that Long Beach State can pull out the victory, just because it would be great for Long Beach State going forward. And you gotta like what Long Beach State has done. Like Last season, Long Beach State was losing close games, but now they're winning close games. They're closing out games, according to Coach Jeffrey Kamen. And I hope Long Beach State can continue their hot streak, because it's sure as heck going to get tougher for them going forward. As next week they play UC Davis, and then the following week they are at Cal Poly. Then they're back home against Long Beach State, and then they close out their season at UC Irvine. That's also going to be a great game right there, or a great pair of games right there. So there's that right there. So now, to close out the NCAA women's basketball teams from Southern California, we have Cal Baptist at 15-0. I am very impressed with how Cal Baptist has played, and they're 7-0 in conference play, but they haven't really had too many conference games going on. As the second place team is Grand Canyon, who's 3-1, but they are 11-3 to make note of that. Seattle is 4-2; they're third in the Western Athletic Conference. But Cal Baptist 15-0, and they're 7-0 in conference play. I'm liking this team, and it would be really cool to see Cal Baptist and Long Beach State face one another again. But it's not going to happen in women's basketball, unless, of course, something happens, and then their schedules open up and the two can face each other next week. But I think I like seeing Cal State Long Beach, or Long Beach State, with their record, or with their current schedule as of right now. So there's that. But that's going to do it for all the NCAA men's and women's basketball scores, standings, and information. Before I sign off, I actually do gotta make note of something spectacular that happened in the men's volleyball world that happened last night. As number 8 UCLA went to Provo to face number 1 BYU, and they actually won in 4 sets, which was absolutely amazing. So I gotta give the applause button for the Bruins right there. Okay, it's not that big of a deal, but it actually is for UCLA men's volleyball, because they actually were missing 3 starters, and they don't have Danon Gayama anymore. So I'll be talking more about the UCLA win over BYU on Tuesday when I do set point. So this is why I don't really talk too much about volleyball, because I leave that for set point. Otherwise, it's basically the exact same thing for the most part. But anyway, I think that's going to do it for tonight's show. But before we sign off and prepare you for the next show, we actually need to make note of our sponsors once more. Our first sponsor is Legacy Financial. 2020 was a tough year. However, staying positive, keeping your faith, and continuing to work hard is the goal. If you're ever in a financial struggle at the moment, Legacy Financial is here for you. If you're doing well and you want to get to the next level, Legacy Financial is also there to help you in that regard. Also, if you're looking for a new opportunity to work for yourself and earn more money part-time, give AO a call at 510-928-2104. Once again, it's 510-928-2104 to book your appointment today. I believe it's pronounced AO. I keep saying different pronunciations, but Io or AO and her husband Andrew are just two people on a mission to help families build a legacy. You can follow them on Twitter at legacy_uncut, and you can follow them on Instagram at sims_uncut. Our second sponsor for iSports Radio is Mama's Always Right Media. Are you feeling overwhelmed with schoolwork? Are those essays keeping you up at night? Don't lose sleep. Pick up the phone. Mama's Always Right Writing Agency will give you quality essays, and they will always make their deadlines. Sleep soundly knowing that they are on the job. For more information, call 626-653-3649. And check out Mama's Always Right's podcasts, such as It Goes Down in the PM. Make sure you check out the newest episode of It Goes Down in the PM, brought to you by Mama's Always Right Media. Also check out the second podcast from Mama's Always Right Media, which is Coffee After Dark. Don't miss the next chapter of your favorite love story. Check out Season 2 of Coffee After Dark, brought to you by Mama's Always Right Media, where they will help you open your business from start to finish. And then our last sponsor for IE Sports Radio is the Sports Rundown. Are you a sports fan but have too much going on in your life these days to keep up with the 24/7 sports news cycle? Or maybe you are new to sports and want to understand the sports concepts better. If so, then the Sports Rundown is for you. They are a new podcast that gives basic, professional, and collegiate sports news, stats, tidbits, and fun facts by the time you get to work, start that second cup of coffee, or finish walking the dog. Enough information to make you dangerous and intelligent, and they will teach you something fun along the way, such as mascots, uniforms, history, feel-good stories, and sports rules. They'll even teach you about current sporting events as well. They even talk about the Premier League. New episodes drop Monday and Friday mornings, so come give them a listen. And you can follow IE Sports Radio on Twitter and on Instagram at IE Sports Radio. Also, give them a like and follow them on Facebook. Just go to the search bar and type in IE space sports space radio. If you see a black background and white letters that says IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that sports, that is it right there. Also, if you're on Facebook, definitely do try to give them a positive rating or a good rating, because we are all sports fans who definitely want to help perfect our craft and deliver some great sports content to you all. And we definitely are here to the people, for the people, and by the people. And also, if you're on Apple Podcasts, definitely try to leave us a 5-star review. We would definitely appreciate it, considering, again, we want to help produce quality content, and we also love what we do. We are passionate for what we do, and we take pride of what we do. And if you're on YouTube, subscribe to us, because that's where all of our shows also go when it comes to our shows being published as well. So without any further delay, it is time to get on out of here, because it is supper time. Thank you all for tuning in to the SoCal Supreme Sports Show. Big shout out to Chapman for popping in for a little bit, such as Larry Hughes, Pierre Moss, Andrew Ross, David Morris. I definitely appreciate you tuning in and popping in. So it's really good content with me, but I know y'all are busy guys. I really appreciate it, and I appreciate those that are listening on the live stream and on the playback. It really means a lot to me. Don't go anywhere, because in about 45 minutes, Larry B's show, Sports Couples Perspective, with him and his lovely girlfriend, Cecilia, will be coming on. For everyone here at IE Sports Radio, this is Teran Rodriguez signing off. Have yourselves a great weekend. Be safe. Remember, SoCal is for SoCal. Peace and blessings, y'all.